Are you rich? Go ahead, answer honestly. Right now, in your head, you almost certainly said no, and you are not alone. When Canadians are asked to place themselves on the ladder, fewer than 2% will call themselves upper class. Almost everyone, the nurse, the software manager, the small business owner, even people quietly sitting near the very top, describes themselves the exact same way. Middle class, comfortable, but not rich, doing okay. But here is the strange part. A lot of the people saying that are wrong, not because they are lying, but because they are comparing themselves to the wrong ruler. So let's fix the ruler. Let's find out, using the real StatCan numbers, whether you are actually doing better than the average Canadian in 2026. And I promise, by the end, the answer is going to surprise you. Let's start with income, because that is the number everyone obsesses over. There are two figures that matter, and the gap between them explains almost everything. The first is the median. The median individual income in Canada sits at roughly $60,000. Median just means the middle. Line up every worker in the country, from the lowest earner to the highest, and the person standing dead center earns about $60,000. Half of Canadians earn more than that. Half earn less. The second number is the average. The average individual income is closer to $78,000. And here's the trick most people miss. The average is higher than the median, and it is higher for one specific reason. A relatively small group of very high earners, the surgeons, the executives, the Bay Street crowd, drag the average upward. One person earning $300,000 pulls the average up, far more than one person earning $30,000 pulls it down. So when a headline tells you the average Canadian makes $78,000, remember this. Most Canadians actually earn less than that. The median is the honest number. Why does this matter to you? Because of the trap. Say you earn $75,000 a year. You probably feel behind. You hear 78,000, average, and you think you are losing the race. But you are not supposed to compare yourself to the average. You compare yourself to the middle. And against the median, $75,000 puts you comfortably ahead of most individual workers in this entire country. You are not behind. You have just been measuring yourself against a number that a handful of millionaires quietly inflated. Okay, so where does rich actually begin? Let's climb the ladder. To crack the top 10% of individual earners in Canada, you need to bring in roughly $165,000 a year. At the household level, so two incomes combined, the top 10% starts at around $255,000. Now, picture who that actually is. It is a tech project manager, married to a registered nurse, living somewhere like Oakville, Ontario, or a newer suburb out in Calgary. On paper, this couple is in the top 10% of the whole country. They are, by any statistical definition, high earners. And yet, go ahead and ask them. They will tell you they feel middle class, maybe even squeezed. Because after the mortgage payment, the childcare bill that rivals a second rent, the two car loans, and a single trip to Loblaws that somehow costs $180 for 4 bags of groceries, the money is gone. High income does not always feel like wealth. Hold on to that, because it is the whole point of this video. Let's keep climbing. The top 5% of individual earners in Canada begins at around $198,000. And the top 1%, the group everyone pictures when they imagine the rich, starts at roughly $310,000 in individual income. For an entire household to reach the top 1%, you are looking at combined earnings north of $580,000 a year. That is genuinely rare air. Fewer than 1 in 100 households will ever touch it. But now we hit the twist. Because income, the money that flows in every single month, is only half the story. And in Canada, it is honestly the less interesting half. The real story is wealth, net worth, what you own, minus what you owe. And this is where the entire picture flips upside down. The average household net worth in Canada is now over $1,100,000. Read that again. The average Canadian household is, technically, a millionaire household. But before you feel behind all over again, remember exactly what we learned about averages. That number is being hauled upward by the wealthiest families in the country. The wealthiest fifth of households now hold nearly 2/3 of all the net worth in Canada, averaging around $3.5 million each. They are distorting the average in precisely the same way the high earners distorted the income figure. So look at the median instead, the true middle. The median household net worth is roughly $480,000, still a substantial number. But here is the part that makes Canada different from almost anywhere else on Earth. Most of that wealth is not money, it is a house. For the typical Canadian household, the majority of net worth, call it 70%, is locked inside the walls of their primary residence. It is not sitting in a checking account. It is not in an RRSP or a TFSA you can spend on a Tuesday afternoon. It is equity. Trapped equity. You cannot buy groceries with your kitchen. You cannot pay the CRA with your hallway. On paper, you might be worth nearly $500,000 and still feel completely broke on the 15th of the month because your wealth is a building you happen to sleep inside. And this is exactly why age changes everything. Picture two Canadians. The first is 30 years old, working downtown, earning a fantastic salary, $140,000 a year. Impressive, right? But they rent. They still carry student debt. Their net worth might be close to zero or even negative. High income, low wealth. Now, picture the second person. A retired school teacher out in Vancouver. She has not earned a big salary in years, maybe $50,000 a year from her pension. But she bought a modest bungalow decades ago, and that little house on the lower mainland is now worth over $4 million. Her net worth absolutely dwarfs the young high earners by a factor of hundreds, and she does not feel rich. She feels like a retired teacher who is quietly worried about her rising property taxes. But statistically, she is wealthier than almost everyone watching this right now. Income tells you how fast the water is flowing into the tank. Wealth tells you how much is already in it. And in Canada, the tank is usually made of drywall and a roof. So let's zoom all the way out, because here's the fact that should genuinely change how you feel tonight. Canada consistently ranks among the 10 richest nations on the entire planet, measured per person. Not 10th from the bottom, the top 10, out of nearly 200 countries. If you own a home in Canada, or even just hold down a steady job here, you are not scraping by on a global scale. You are wealthier than roughly 90% of every human being alive today. The struggle you feel is real, but it is the struggle of someone standing near the very top of the world's ladder, staring up at the handful of rungs above them, and completely forgetting about the enormous crowd standing below. Which brings us to the only conclusion that actually matters. The reason almost none of us ever feel rich has nothing to do with the statistics. It is the comparison trap. We do not compare ourselves to the median. We do not compare ourselves to the planet. We compare ourselves to the person in the slightly nicer house, 3 doors down, inside our own little upper-middle-class bubble, their kitchen renovation, their newer SUV parked in the driveway, somewhere in the GTA, their vacation photos. And that is a race you can never win, because wealth is a moving target. The very moment you reach the rung you were chasing, a new rung appears above it, and the person standing on it instantly becomes your new average. That is why the tech manager in the top 10% still feels middle class. That is why the family, sitting on a $2 million home, still feels like they are just barely getting by. So, are you doing better than the average Canadian? Look at the honest numbers. The median, not the average. Look at what you actually own, not just what you earn. And look at where you truly sit. Not on your street, but on the planet. Because the truth is, you are almost certainly doing far, far better than you have ever let yourself believe. The question was never really, are you rich? The question is whether you will ever let yourself feel it. If you learned something from this video, make sure to like and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.